This is the ISSP podcast. The International Society for Sports Psychiatry, or ISSP, aims to carry the science and practice of psychiatry to the athletic community. My co-hosts and I are all medical trainees between medical students and resident physicians who plan to specialize in psychiatry. And we host conversations around the intersection between mental health and sports. Welcome.
Hey, this is the ISSP podcast, and we explore the intersection between mental health and sports. And today we have a special, amazing guest that we're excited to bring to you guys today. We have student Dr. Erica Ogwumike, and she currently is a aspiring doctor and attends the University of Texas Southwestern Medical School. So she's a doctor, y'all. But prior to getting into medicine, you might have saw her on your TV screens at the recent 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Erica started her basketball career at Cypress Woods High School, where she scored 2,227 career points. Yes, all this by herself. And she also had 1,141 rebounds and 440 steals. After leaving a solid legacy in high school, she continued her career at Pepperdine and played for their women's basketball team. She later transferred to Rice University and played for their women's basketball team as well. And her senior year, she was averaging about 19 points, averaging 10.3 rebounds and 2.7 assists, just straight killing it, right? So while playing basketball, she was also studying to become a physician. Upon graduation, she was the 26th overall draft pick in the 2020 WNBA draft and landed with the Minnesota Lynx. Later this year, Erica went to represent Nigeria at the women's national basketball team at the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics. Currently, you can find Erica behind a laptop and studying in anatomy lab at Texas Southwestern, UT Southwestern, and she's currently interested in dermatology. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you. That was such a good intro.
We try. So, today we just wanted to get to know your experience and maybe get to know, about, sports, mental health, and maybe your journey. You could tell us your story so far.
Yeah. I mean, your intro was pretty spot on with my athletic journey. I grew up and I'm the youngest of 4 girls. All my sisters play basketball. So I kind of had role models from a young age, but we kind of were placed in basketball. We didn't love it at first. They were just super tall. So they got kicked out of gymnastics. So we had to find a new sport to do. So that's kind of how it went. But I am very much, I think, the youngest sister, in all aspects. And I think it really molds my personality because I pretty much was okay, I'm just going to copy everything they did because look, they're thriving, So that's kind of what I did. And I really just tried to mold my career and path off of them. But as you saw, I soon realized okay, basketball is not forever, and I need to figure out what I like. And I realized, okay, I like science. I just liked the classes. I didn't really know much about being a doctor. I just liked the classes, science that you had to take, the math. I didn't like physics, but I was we can get by that. So because of that, as you can see, I copied my sisters a lot in what they did. They both went to Stanford to play basketball. I chose to go. I was okay, I need to go to an academic school, so Pepperdine and then Rice. But I also need to make sure I can give enough time to the pre-med aspects. So I was I need to be specific with the type of school I choose. And Rice was a perfect fit, So that was a first example of me, following their footsteps, but also having to be very detailed and calculative with what I do too. So that was my thought process behind going to Rice. And I was Rice, we weren't doing that well athletically, but I knew we could turn it around, which we did. So I really got the best out of both worlds when it came to athletics and academics. I mean, I had an amazing head coach that allowed me to go play a game, then go to a med school interview, take a late flight, and then I'd come back the day of the next game and play. And she just trusted me. And I was you're not going to find that at every single huge school, because the athletic programs are just that much, they're just they're massive, you know? And Rice really gave me that ability to do both and still compete at the highest level. So I was really happy. And then all of a sudden I just happened to realize it was in the Texas Medical Center. So I was like, oh, this is a plug, and it just worked out really well. I didn't even know that at first, but that's kind of how my journey happened. So I was able to really excel at the highest level athletically and prepare myself if I wanted to play in the WNBA or professionally, like I did with Nigeria, and also prepare myself to get into med school and like not have any downtime in between. So I was really fortunate that I copied my sisters, but also realized like what I needed. So it got me to where I am today, you know, without many hiccups, fortunately.
Yeah. Erica, I wonder if you could talk to us more about what it was like to balance that academic and athletic grind. So you mentioned, you know, physically as you're going into medical school, fly to different medical interviews and then having to go to games. What was that balance like for you?
Yeah, it was hard. I always joke because my coach could always tell when I had an exam coming up because she was like, this girl is not in practice. Like her head is not in it. She could tell. She'd be like, you have an exam? I'm like, yeah. So like, it was hard. People think like outside looking in, it was easy, but you like have to give 100% as you like in everything you do, but you're physically, mentally going to realize like, oh, you know, I've tried really hard in practice, but that was probably like 80%, you know? So it's like, you have to give yourself grace. And that's what I think I learned really quick when I was in school. Like there'd be times when, okay, I took a test, I have 2 weeks of like nothing except for just going to class and doing small work. I was like, let me go hard and like, you know, stay after practice and get like 100 extra free throws up, you know? And that balance, I think, allowed me to really excel in both instead of kind of just like being like, hey, I'm on a full ride. Let me just go focus on school and get good grades. Because like, it was not fun losing games. So I had to figure out a way to do both. So that's kind of how the grind worked for me. I think I just gave myself grace and realized like, you're going to give your 100%, but it might not always be 100%, you know, but in the end, it should balance out. And that's kind of what worked for me.
Were there any aspects of basketball that you already found translate into, you know, I would assume a more intensive, although I know kind of balancing pre-med and basketball must have been tough, but any lessons you've learned from basketball that you take into studying medicine so far?
Yeah, I think honestly, the typical things that every athlete takes going into med school, which is like your teammates come from everywhere, like not just in the US, they come from international, you know, like transfer portal is crazy now. You're getting kids from everywhere. So you have to learn how to communicate in a way that caters to them, you know? It's not just like be able to communicate. So having to do that every single day when I was captain was super important, and it really trained me. And then of course, like the teamwork, leadership, time managing things, you practice it every single day. And you're so used to not having your own schedule that when you get to med school and you like still might not be able to have your own schedule, it's not as big as an adjustment. You're just extremely adaptable. It's still a different type of toughness, I think, because like you're so used to performing and exercising that like you enjoy it in a way. So like, but this way you're adapting is to like, you have to fit in your exercise still, which has really been like a big struggle in med school for me, because like your exercise was given in college, but now it's like, okay, this is your schedule for school. Like they don't even say anything about exercise, but like they're like, oh, mental health, you know, you should exercise, like walk around the neighborhood or something, you know, but it's not part of your schedule. So like, I think that's been the hardest part, because exercising has been like the main part of our schedule. So it's been hard to adjust that, which is, I don't know if I described that well, but yeah.
Good. I was gonna ask, like, curious how you felt balancing your playing in undergrad. Maybe you considered, maybe you didn't consider continuing on professionally after undergrad, versus how you balance or are able to balance training, preparing for the Olympics and medical school. If you see any similarities or differences, kind of tips and tricks that you've gained or learned.
I would say training in med school was entirely harder than training in undergrad, because I'm a medical student when I'm in med school. You know, you're not there to be a student athlete. That's not a thing in med school. You're a medical student, you know? So like everything I was doing was an extracurricular. So it was really hard. And then also in medicine, you kind of find that it's easier to just fit in the crowd sometimes instead of trying to look so different. So I didn't really want to express that, okay, every day after class, I go and do a basketball workout, like, oh, but you're not studying? Oh, you got a 80 something on this quiz? Dang, maybe it's because you were working out, like, and you could have gone a 90. I'm like, it's pass fail, man. But but like stuff like that, I found it harder to, talk about what I was doing until it happened, because I just wanted to not look like I wasn't as interested in one as I was the other. But I actually was hyper focused and super interested in both. And it like allowed me to be super regimented in med school. Meanwhile, in college, you're a student athlete. So like professors know it, everybody knows it. Like you have this allotted time for practice, you have these classes you have to take, and it's very common. Professors know how to work with student athletes. So it was a little bit easier to balance. I think that it was a weird year that I got drafted. It was COVID year. So the opportunity was going to be to play in a bubble. So a lot of my decisions were very different when it came to that COVID year. And also there was no training camp. So like my opportunities were super limited. So I think that definitely drastically changed my decision of trying to play basketball professionally.
And you had talked about like you gave yourself grace during undergrad, or correct me if it wasn't during undergrad, but the phrase giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to know, like I did the best I could. I may not see the best results that I wanted, but I know I did the best that I could. Were there any times where you felt it was more difficult to kind of give yourself grace? Did you have any trouble kind of accepting some of the results you were able to see come from your preparation?
Yeah, I think it was tough being at such an academically rigorous institution, and all my classmates around me are brilliant. It was so tough not to compare my scores to them. And like, I never wanted to use, oh, well, I had practice for 5 hours as an excuse, because that's not an excuse. You're still a student as much as them, But I think it was tough sometimes, like, physics, like it's free, that class, I just don't like it at all, and like just don't like it. But I was struggling, like it was hard. It was the first time I've kind of like learned physics on that higher level. I had a professor who I think almost won a Nobel Peace Prize. Like he is teaching it to the highest degree that you can teach physics, and it was just such a learning curve for me that I think it was definitely frustrating. And I tried to tell myself like, okay, you're doing your best, give yourself grace, but it's not easy when you see everyone around you kind of thriving. But also I think I found people that I could talk to in the class, not just athletes, but also other students that were like struggling too. And it's kind of funny because you kind of like have this community in the struggle, and you kind of all want to help each other and, study together, give each other the best resources. So that helped a lot. When I couldn't give myself grace, I think having a community of people that kind of did it for me helped a lot.
Yeah, I had a question is like, so we usually see with athletes that, when they're transitioning from being, like at least seems like with you're still doing some playing on teams, playing on sports, but transitioning from being an athlete, that sometimes, there's a lot of transition issues, a lot of problems trying to like, get into a new career. But it seems like you had some mentors, you had at least a plan. What, for those athletes maybe that are struggling, what are some things they could probably do or probably think about like planning to maybe make that transition better? Is it like having, an idea for what you want to do after, or having, going to like some conferences, or what could they do,
Yeah, I think when it comes to undergrad, definitely just really try to figure out what is of your interest outside of sports, and to not just think about it, but also attend things like, I don't know if they have like student organizations, like financial literacy organization, if you're interested in that, like try to actually go and meet people who are not around sports, because like there's so much more to the world than just sports. And I think it's very easy to be in your student athlete bubble in college. So that was something I would say for the undergrads, because then you'll start to realize like how much more there is outside of sports, and it'll force yourself to think a little bit more. And then in med school, I think I'm transitioning into that now of like, I'm not like an athlete or like I'm not like competing, you know? So I would say the best thing to do is to kind of, it's weird, but like continue to exercise like you're an athlete if you can, kind of helps, because like you have that mindset still that allows you to be at your best when it comes to like physically. And I don't know, I think physical, mental, all of it is kind of combined a little bit. So like stay exercising. Don't just completely transform into someone who doesn't exercise, because that was a big part of your life. And then also I think, like you said, going to conferences actually does help, because it kind of shows you what profession you're interested in a professional manner, instead of just you thinking about it like, oh, I can watch this YouTube video on what dermatologists do, you know. But like you could, like, it's still not like as tangible as going to these conferences with other physicians there. And that has allowed me to like see this new community of people and visualize exactly what I want with my future. So those are two things that helps, but it's definitely a tough transition.
I want to talk more about that transition, because it sounds like you've made some discoveries about yourself as far as how you feel, how your mind works, how your emotions are in these different, I guess, levels of activity, right? There's the, as you're kind of actively competing, amount of physical activity and exercise. And then there's the, I just want to sort of, keep up with what I got, the level that we're kind of at now. What have you noticed as far as that connection between exercise and your emotions?
It's almost like too much of a connection. Like, I think because I sit so long these past 2 years studying, I like need the exercise for sure to like, one, keep you awake, like boost endorphins, like a bunch of things. It's like very pivotal to me. So I always prioritize it. If that means I have to wake up at 4 a.m., like I'll still do it, because I know with my body that helps. But I know that's going to switch in clerkships. I've already like done a rotation, so I can see that like you might not have that chance to work out like for 2 straight hours every single day. But I don't know, I feel like if it's something you can do, if you do enjoy it, like even just like walking on the treadmill while you're doing Anki cards or something, I've noticed that it really does just center me, to be honest. And because it's something that you've done for so long, if you really didn't enjoy it, then okay, yeah, you can cut it cold turkey and you'll probably be fine. But I definitely think it's beneficial for everybody, not even just athletes. I think it's beneficial for like every single student, to be honest.
Did you ever notice any changes on the other side, maybe as you were exercising less, like you found yourself more kind of emotionally activated or in worse mood or anything?
Yeah, I think when I exercised less, I definitely was in a worse mood for sure. It's very related to my emotions, I think. But I also think in your brain, you have it triggered that you have to exercise. So it's also like a weird balance and kind of an addiction a little bit. And you have to, like I talk about, give yourself grace on days that you can't. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do that because of how connected we've been to it for so long. But yeah, I think like not a lot of people experience this side of it to where it's like they want to work out too much. It's usually the opposite, but I'm having to learn the balance of both.
But I think that aligns perfectly with you being an elite level athlete. There's only such a small percentage of people who can make it to compete and participate on Olympic level teams, right?
Yeah.
So either from your own perspective or maybe seeing other teammates that you train with and see compete, this idea of being addicted to exercise is not really a surprising notion to bring up. I believe that somewhere between 8 to 10% of people who see exercise as something that's part of their life on a daily basis that could qualify as being addicted to exercise. In the similar way that people may be addicted to gambling or substance use or any other thing, food that things may find addictive. It kind of triggers those same sort of neurotransmitters, receptors in their brain, provides a level of feedback to them, the same level of enjoyment. So in you bringing that up, did you ever feel, or did you ever have someone tell you that you had some addictive tendencies related to exercise, or maybe thought you saw that in some of your teammates?
I don't think they would say like addictive, but I think you can kind of like put two and two together because they'd be like, Erica, why are you always doing extra conditioning after practice? Or like my sister would be like, I have three sisters, and one of them would be like, like now that you're done, you don't have to work out like you're going to practice every single day, So like they're not saying you're addicted, but they're also like, you are on an extreme level,
Mm-hmm.
But I also have the other hand where I'm watching my sisters who, especially my oldest sister, Neka, plays for the LA Sparks, who I've never seen anyone who has this regimented schedule like her, no matter where she is, any type of appearance she has. Like she has a schedule for her workouts. She has a trainer. She knows exactly what she does. And watching her, I also realized like, maybe what I'm doing isn't that crazy. But then at the same time, it's like I'm watching this girl who's like WNBA MVP, like literally Hall of Famer, So like, are my standards just crazy? But yeah, I definitely think people have said it to me before because I don't think it's normal.
I mean, it's a fine line, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
A fine line between and whatever you have as your reference point is kind of what you judge it. You've only a high school level or maybe throughout college versus seeing people who are professional players, MVP levels, Olympic level players. It's a difference, right? So you don't necessarily know.
I know, yeah. I'm starting to realize that now being around more people like just in medical school that it's not very normal what I do. So I'm trying to like balance it.
Yeah, a good rule of thumb with addiction, because addiction's contextual, right? And you don't want necessarily something that could be helpful, right? Or something that in context is appropriate to be considered one. A good rule of thumb would be, is this thing that I'm talking about, right? Whether it be exercise or gambling or some of these other addictions that are more common, are they leading to poor outcomes? And now that I know that they're leading to poor outcomes, am I still kind of participating in them? Am I still, do I have a hard time maybe doing less, right? Have I been told that I need to do less and I can't? Those are, once you, as kind of like a general rule of thumb, right? There are, more kind of delineated, pointed out symptoms towards an addiction, but as a general rule of thumb, right? Is this like harming me in some way? And now that I know that I'm harming me, is it hard for me to stop? Or is it hard for me to cut back, right? That's kind of when you get more into the actual clinical definition of addiction land.
That's actually interesting that you say that because I didn't know the clinical definition of it, but it makes complete sense because there would be times where it's like, okay, I have an exam on Friday. I need to study the entire day, And if I can't get a workout in, like I'm okay with that because I know, okay, what if I worked out for 2 hours and then I over here fail an exam or get a super low grade on an exam? Like that's the kind of like the negative outcomes that I can see to where it's like, you really just couldn't work out for one day. And I don't think I've gotten that far gone because I've had to make that decision multiple times. But it's interesting to say that because I've had that thought process in my head,
I think that's real interesting because like we're just reading about exercise addictions. The real difference is like the ability to, because there's a lot of benefits, like you're saying, the endorphins, exercise is amazing, like energy, mood. It's like one of the best antidepressants, right? And then, and we're talking about a small minority of world athletes that will probably deal with this, I actually had a patient. So the thing with her was she had, she was always a chronic exerciser, exercise every day, go for runs, and she was on the rowing team. And then, it looked like the issue that ended up happening with her was like she had a parent that passed away and then kind of started isolating and started, exercising every day, daily. Right. And, it's like a healthy thing. It actually helped with her anxiety and like feeling depressed about her parent passing away. But then also we started noticing that like, she wasn't, she was skipping out like lunchtime to eat, she was like, you're probably going to learn about anorexia, like, but like she was having some low BMI or like low body weight, having some symptoms where she was actually like, in deficit for nutritional deficit. So that's the one we're like, okay, now this is kind of caught into the issue. We need to figure out what the underlying issue was her parent passing away and like, kind of work on the other things that can help her. But yeah, but then it's like such a fine line too, because we didn't even catch that until later on. We started asking her more questions and we realized, oh, part of the reason it's not that she's not eating too much, is that she's exercising significantly every day, because of this underlying issue. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, but it's like a slippery slope because it's really good for you, like she probably would have been in a lot worse shape if she didn't have to exercise so much. So
yeah.
But yeah, looks like, thank you, Erica. I mean, this has been a great talk. I don't know if we have any more questions for our busy athlete doctor today.
I'd be interested in actually hearing about what your experiences are and what maybe lead you thinking to dermatology or any other specialties, and maybe how your athletic career, if at all, has influenced that.
Yeah, I know it's a very unique specialty, I think, with my background. I didn't really know much about dermatology going into med school. No one in my family is a doctor or even like a nurse or anything like that. So I kind of went in with an open book, and through SNMA, they gave me a mentor who is a dermatologist. So I kind of was like, okay, what's this specialty? And would talk to him. But after going through the course, first off, we get this 2 weeks of dermatology and pre-clerkship. So you don't learn a crazy bunch about it, but I was just seeing how you literally can visualize so much when it comes to dermatology. And I realized that I'm a super visual person, and I think I visualize a lot of my problems, and I visualize when I problem solve too. So it was that type of connection that was immediate to me compared to something like nephrology, where it's I need to run the labs, I need to run, it was I was trying to kind of cut all that out, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm good at, So after that, I found out how competitive the specialty was. So I had to just start learning more about it, doing research and yada, yada. And I'm still learning as I go. And I've always, of course, the typical dermatologist is interested in the skincare, skin of color is super important. And I'm learning way more about it. And I've done a lot of projects on health disparities in medical education. So I've just seen where there's so much work that can be done in this field. So that's kind of where I've been at. I'm not 100% certain because I need to go through most of my rotations still, but I definitely am gravitating towards it right now.
Well, that's really awesome. And we're definitely looking forward to having more people with your interests and who look like you with your background in the field. I'm sure you're going to help a lot of people out here really soon.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate your time, Erica. We're really inspired by your journey. You've definitely are the definition of a student athlete, elite basketball player on the Olympics, and now future dermatologist or other specialty to be. And we really appreciate you. If there's anything that you want to shout out, or if people want to reach out to you and learn more about your story, any advice for them as far as reaching out to you?
I mean, first off, thank y'all for inviting me. This is a great platform with a great mission. I think it's super interesting and super unique. So a lot of people, I think, can learn a lot from this type of podcast. And reaching out to me wise, I'm pretty an open book on most social medias. I have an Instagram, I have a YouTube channel, I have a TikTok. So I usually just try to post things to where people can see what I'm doing in med school, see what I'm doing when I work out, just so they can visualize it. Because there is a handful of student athletes in medicine that kind of just want to see that it's possible, So that's I just try to be an example of that. I talked about, visualization is really big for me. But yeah, they can reach out on any of them. Most of them are just my name, Erica Ogwumike. So.
Okay, we'll be sure to include that in all our bio and information, our Chiron too. All right. Well, thank you so much, Erica. We really appreciate having you. Again, I'm sure a lot of people that are coming up, that are looking to go to the school from athletics to medical school, can look at you as a role model and follow your journey along the way. So look forward to being a bridge to that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to our content today. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels and share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Also, follow us at Sports Psych ISSP on Twitter and Instagram, or you can find us on Facebook as the International Society for Sports Psychiatry. Are you a medical student, psychiatry resident, fellow in a psychiatry subspecialty fellowship program, or a psychiatrist who has completed a psychiatry residency program interested in learning more about sports psychiatry? Join us and become a member of the ISSP. We have a free open source certificate of additional training in sports psychiatry program. For more information about our certification program, membership, or other inquiries, go to our website at sportspsychiatry.org.